Hello and welcome to Cielo Costa's video series on digital transformation in the built environment. We talk to industry leaders and experts about some of the unique challenges in the sector, from legacy digital and physical infrastructure to complex regulatory requirements to the many AI, software and PropTech solutions that are on offer. If you work in the built environment and are looking for some pointers and the perspective of your peers, this might be for you. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.
Brilliant, cool. Well, this morning I'm joined by Damon, Webster and Steve Kennedy from MWH Treatment. We're going to talk about all things digital innovation and transformation within their business. Really looking forward to today's chats. Before we get into the details, Damon and then Steve, would you like to give us a brief introduction of yourselves and your role within MWH Treatment?
Hi, I'm Steve Kennedy. I'm Innovation and Business Excellence Director for MWH Treatment.
And I'm Damon Webster. I'm the Technology and Systems Director at MWH Treatment.
Great, thank you guys. So before we get into innovation and technology solutions, I think it would just be helpful just to get a brief overview of actually what MWH Treatment does as a company, if that's okay.
Yeah, so MWH Treatment is one of the leading design build contractors in the UK for water and wastewater treatment. We've got revenues in and around £400 million, serving 9 strategic frameworks for water companies from the very north of Scotland to the south coast of England, including Northern Ireland as well. We've got about or just over 1,300 staff at the moment, and that includes 350 of our own in-house engineering team as well. So that connectivity between design and construction or delivery is a really integral part of what we do at MWH Treatment.
Right, thanks, Steve. Looking back, taking a step back, MWH Treatment is a roughly 200-year-old company. Have you found challenges in terms of modernizing legacy systems when you're working with a company with that heritage and that scale that you just mentioned? What are the challenges in that regard?
Yeah, we've been around for a while. Well, sometimes it feels like we're really quite young. So about 7 years ago, we were divested from a much larger global company called Stantec, who effectively divested all of their construction activities from their engineering consultancy. And in effect, they gave us a very short timeline to get out. So they literally sort of picked us up by the scruff of the neck and threw us out on the street without any legacy systems. So whilst that was a pretty scary place to be at the time, it's actually paid quite some dividends in the changes that happened. And, that being just before COVID, we kind of redeployed everything, virtually everything to the cloud. So we were still mobile. We were still able to actually continue working. We weren't tied to an office or an Ethernet cable. So that really, really did pay dividends. And that sort of set us up for the future. I guess we're not immune to the legacy human systems though. So we still have a lot of that, and that 200-year legacy, whilst I don't think we've got anybody that's 200 years old, we have a lot of people that have been around for a long time. Yeah. And there is a certain muscle memory that we need to get over. And that is obviously one of the biggest challenges that all companies have when we go through any kind of transformation is that human element of that. I guess the other thing as well is that we've had some quite significant growth in the last few years. We've kind of doubled the amount of people that we've had in the last few years. So that rapid growth and the attendant influx of new ways of thinking, or even just different types of people coming in, has really sort of diluted some of those that muscle memory that we've been used to. So that's been a major challenge for us. Yeah. So yeah, it's not been all straightforward, but it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting point. The whole that alignment of people with technology and innovation is critical, isn't it? And I think it's worth actually diving into that question a bit more in terms of, you've got a sort of a core IT team, a wider business team, external stakeholders, partners, customers. When you're sort of planning innovation and technology evolution, what's your approach to making sure those key stakeholders come on the journey with you?
The way that we approached it, we started looking at digital delivery about 15 years ago now, which seems a long time. What we selected a Pathfinder project. We'd won a project of a reasonable size that required us to reuse an existing building. There was significant opportunity with that, but also a significant amount of risk, because if we couldn't use the building, if we couldn't fit the plant in, it posed a challenge. And the client to an extent, because they were space limited. So we set the project up as a Pathfinder project. And really what we put on that project was some of our most innovative thinking people, and used the digital tools really that were available at that time, even 15 years ago, to deliver the project. And what we really learned from that was that technology wasn't the blocker. It was people, the way that we work, the way that we do things. So what we took the approach of, once we'd delivered, or well on the way with delivery of that project, we rolled the program of Pathfinder projects out more broadly to each of our frameworks. And again, took those people who were innovative and put them alongside others in the region who also looked and were keen to deliver projects differently. And what that created for us was a team, and we used the phrase at the time, a team of virus carriers, of people who were the sort of those seeds who made change, and created a bit of momentum around it. So that really helped with our approach. It was people-led, technology to support, and we've got enterprise business agreements with both Autodesk and Bentley, the main sort of providers of digital tools in this arena. And really focused on the areas of where we could mitigate risks and also realize benefits, but particularly in construction, a lot around that risk mitigation. The areas that we've looked at most around digital transformation recently, or up until this point, is around visualization to unlock collaborative innovation. So using the tools to get people working together, get them to understand what it is, feeling that they can contribute. And really the last year or two, we've started to focus more and more around the data analytics and informing better decisions. So that's partly where we are now with Damon and I in the roles in the business. Is yes, we've got a really great skill set, we've got really great people around the visualization piece, but how do we get more out of our data? How do we use that to inform decisions going forward?
From at a business level, both Steve and I have moved into roles that are quite significantly different than what we've had before. So Steve's had a role with innovation, but now we've kind of added on the business excellence side of things. So it's about rebalancing things. It's not just about one thing, it's about understanding that we can have two things at the same time. In fact, they're necessary to have, so that they can play off against each other. My role, I've effectively taken over the IT team that we had, but it's not just the IT team anymore. We decided that it needed to be wider than just the IT team. So now Steve and I are sat alongside each other, a little bit like Batman and Robin. We work really well together. Steve looks after the innovation side, and he'll really be challenging things, whilst some of my remit is making sure that we've got things locked down and secure and not letting the bad guys in. But again, it's about getting that balance right and understanding that you have to have both of those things if you want to truly transform and move to somewhere that you haven't. Because otherwise, you just end up sitting in a room arguing with each other, and usually the one with the biggest voice wins, which is not where I think any of the optimal solutions lie. So it's really interesting from a structural point of view as well. Our organisation has, in recent years, really started to make a decision on, we can't do the same things that we have been doing for almost 200 years in the same way that we could, that we need to do.
Yeah, no, that makes lots of sense. I think not having siloed teams, not having the tech team separate from innovation, separate from ops, because when you do that, then business decisions aren't being made in that joined up way, are they? So you need to have those different people together, working together, more collaboratively, really, to actually get the business benefits.
Absolutely, Ollie. I mean, I think this is something that we get really misunderstood in the transformation space. Silos is almost like the worst possible situation. Newsflash, you ain't getting rid of silos. They exist, and you can't get rid of them. What we need to do, though, is work on those handshakes between those silos. It's about the connections now, not just the individual things. We obsess over the nodes in a network. What we should be obsessing over is the connections and the communication channels, the handshakes, as I've just said, between each one of them. Yeah.
When you're thinking about innovation, looking at some of the things you talk about on the MWH website, you've got network analysis, visualization, which you just mentioned, Steve, collaboration, sustainability. what's the starting point from innovation? Is it thinking about the business challenge, or how do you go about deciding what are innovation priorities for MWH Treatment?
That's a really interesting question. So how we look at those innovations and the priorities, in one hand, is often driven by our clients, but also is driven by our organization, our culture, and our needs. So MWH Treatment's been around for 200 years. It's constantly had to evolve and change. And I think when we look at the market at the moment, we look at the water sector, the environment and sustainability, there are a lot of new drivers that are coming at us and challenging us to deliver projects differently. I think the biggest challenge that we're seeing at the moment is the extra investment that's required in the water sector to provide safe, sustainable drinking water and wastewater treatment for the sewerage and the disposal.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge that we're seeing there, that increased investment at a time when the UK government is looking at investing in infrastructure in a number of areas. You've got roads, you've got rails, you've got house building going on. So the real challenge for us is around that productivity piece. So how can we be more efficient day to day in the tasks that we do, using technology to be efficient, but also how do we transform it? So rather than a 10% year-on-year improvement, what transformations could bring that increase our productivity individually by double? And I think those are the two considerations that we're looking at, followed by, and Damon mentioned it already, followed by that security piece, that challenge that we have to keep our systems safe and secure, that we are making sure that whatever we produce, whatever we share digitally is secure. I think, Damon, we've seen the number of threats, the number of activities increase exponentially over the past few years, haven't we? And that security piece in the water sector is a real challenge for us when we're dealing with critical national infrastructure.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there anything specific to the water sector from a security perspective? Because obviously we're aware of the general challenges around cybersecurity and safety. Is there anything specific to MWH Treatment or the water sector more generally that you think is unique from a security perspective?
I don't think there's particularly anything unique to the water industry, but Steve just mentioned those critical words, the critical national infrastructure. If somebody decided to upset the UK, either wastewater treatment or clean water provision is probably a pretty good target to be going at. So in terms of the operational technology that we deploy in the assets that we actually provide and hand over to our clients, we have to be thinking about that continuously. There are lots of directives and laws and regulations that we have to comply with, but that's not really anything different than what we've been used to, other than the threat level does seem to be increasing. We've seen a threefold increase in the number of attacks on our systems now. We don't operate that network, and we're not connected to some of those clients. It's been a long time since we've been allowed to actually connect directly to those control systems. But clearly we have a lot of information that's stored within our systems that's required to actually design and build and then hand over to our clients so they can efficiently operate it. So I don't think there's anything specific, but we do have a significant challenge, and it's one of those industries that we don't really pay a lot of thought to, most of us. We just turn the tap and it comes out, right?
Yeah, that's what everyone thinks exactly from the outside.
It's quite a balance, isn't it, Damon, between that need to drive collaboration, to make information available to people to get the best ideas whilst keeping the control and the security. And I think more so than we probably anticipated a couple of years ago. It's about how do you get access of information to people? How do you share it widely? How do you get everyone engaged and involved? And I think the past couple of years that control side has really come into our thinking when we're looking at new technologies that are coming to market. The first thing is, yes, it's great from a collaboration perspective, but what security do they have? Where is the data secured? How do we control access to it? How do we keep that up to date? And it's a bit like a yin and yang. it's a constant discussion back and forth that we're having in that area at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's enterprise architecture, governance and safety and control is critical, isn't it? But then, like you say, the balance against allowing the freedom for individuals and teams to experiment and try new things out, whether that's with AI or other technologies. And it's a constant tension, if you like, hopefully a healthy tension, but you have to try and always balance it and get it right. You've obviously done a lot, 200-year-old company, but the last 5 years you've obviously been driving quite a big, significant digital transformation program. Would you like to just give us sort of a high-level overview of what you've been doing in that previous 5 years up to this date?
Yeah, so I talked about the Pathfinder projects, our approach to that. What we developed off the back of that was what we called a digital toolbox. So it was a series of tools that covered the life cycle of a project, right from project initiation through digital engineering into digital delivery and digital operations. That toolbox has a series of core tools that are used on pretty much all of the projects, and then a number of other tools that are there to look at the type of project and determine whether they're going to mitigate risks or realize benefits. So it's not a clear mandate. But we do have digital strategies. We recently introduced into our internal governance process that every project has to have a digital strategy, and that's reviewed by me to confirm that it's using the right tools on the right projects. I think that toolbox was fairly traditional in that we like to scan, then we model, we rehearse a project both for the build sequence, so combine the model with the program. But we not only rehearse construction, we also rehearse commissioning as well. So how do we make sure we keep safe water into production if we're working on water treatment works, or ensure that the effluent that's discharged to the environment it meets its standards. So we rehearse both that construction and commissioning. We then assemble, so we're very much looking at the modern methods of constructions or design for manufacturing, assembly, industrialized construction that is used a few times, or it's given different names to the same approach. And then we transfer it, and increasingly we've moved away from paper-based forms on sites to digital forms using iPads, being able to monitor progress. But I think coupled with that, what we really focused on was bringing people in to support it. So there was initially the head of digital delivery. We then introduced regional digital delivery leads. So there's a digital lead for each of the regions to support teams both in engineering and in our operational teams. But also we brought in a number of leads around the specific initiatives. So for scanning, we've got a head of scanning, we've got a head of visualization for the visualization piece. So coupling all those pieces together gave us a really robust approach. We've got the tools there, we've got people to support it as well, and who are invested in making our teams' lives easier. That's ultimately what we're trying to do with these digital tools. If a tool is generally there to help the person who's using it, and it does do that, you find the uptake's really good. If you're trying to force something in for another reason, then you're up against people, you're up against change, and you haven't got that easy win. So that becomes more of a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've mentioned as well on your website about building information management, BIM 360. Could you tell me a bit about how that works and how that fits into your innovation work?
We use that BIM 360 quite a lot. It is it's one of a tool because it's an Autodesk product. Really what it's around is the life cycle of information from the start of a project through to the very end, and that connectivity of data, I think over the last couple of years has become a real realization for us around productivity and efficiency. So how do we stop that manual data transfer from systems? And ultimately Damon's role was created as a result of that need to improve efficiency and not only look at digital delivery and how we deliver our projects, but what does our digital architecture look like across the business?
Yeah, I mean, I guess sort of talking a little bit more about the technology and system strategy, try to keep it simple for this short chat. It's truly just about bringing asset data, the stuff that's related to the assets that we hand over, BIM types of data, with our business data. So ERP systems, payroll, people, all of that kind of stuff, everything else. And traditionally they have been siloed. There's been almost zero connection between them other than via humans, and let's face it, lots of Excel spreadsheets and pivot tables and everything else that we all grew up loving. BIM 360 was just another one of those tools, and until very recently, we effectively treated it like just another siloed tool. We literally copied information into it so that the guys on site could understand how the designers thought that it should be built, commissioned, and then operated. But more and more, we are pushing all of that data together. It's actually about the relationships between all of that data. And it's not, for me at least, not just about the efficiency. That's a huge part of what we're talking about here, getting better with doing less, and certainly having less humans, because there are fundamentally not enough humans to do what we want to do in the next 5 years, not in our industry at least. But how do we empower people to be able to become much more productive? So yes, it is about productivity, but it's about truly providing tools that can allow people to do things they've not been able to do before. So by combining those data sets, we can really ask some simple questions through whatever sort of human-centered interface that we want to put together. And we have a selection of those, whether it's something as simple as an AI chatbot. ChatGPT's just exploded people's brains over the last year. And now people are really starting to wonder, why the heck am I doing that on a spreadsheet? Or why am I asking a data analyst to go away for a week and try and give me something that I can literally just ask a machine in the language that I understand how to do it? So we're working much more towards all of that kind of thing. Simple things, right? These are sometimes really, really simple questions. Like, by the time I hand my plant over, which items of plant are going to be out of warranty? Because many of our projects work over multiple years, and if we're not absolutely on top of our warranty, and when we install them and when we actually start them up, how we maintain them, some of these projects, some of these items of kit could actually be out of warranty before we hand things over. There's quite a lot of work that goes into making sure that doesn't happen. Obviously it doesn't happen, but there's a huge amount of human input and lots of different systems to collect all of that. So we're working towards being able to bring all of that thing together so that we can much easier manage all of that kind of thing, rather than just be at the whim of someone's spreadsheet that relies on somebody else's spreadsheet that relies on a PowerPoint table that relies on, you get the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned AI, and it's obviously, as we mentioned a minute ago, everyone's talking about it. How much have you seen AI come to bear on your innovation work, and is it more of an evolution of what you were doing already rather than a revolution in approach necessarily? And is it tactical and specific to certain, sort of extracting unstructured data, or is it actually helping with wider civil, engineering type projects in terms of actually helping engineers to plan projects? I'd be interested to know how you've seen AI applied in a useful way so far, and where you think it might go in the future.
So I think I was going to give the one example that we've really landed with AI is using a software tool called Intuity, and it's around using historic corporate knowledge to apply to what we call our RAM statement, risk assessment method statement. So when we undertake a piece of work, you have to write a RAM statement that sets out how you're going to do it. And often what you'll find is that that's written by an individual in an organization, it's reviewed by another individual in another organization, and those individuals' knowledge is then applied to that statement. What we've used AI for is to feed that risk assessment into an AI database. The database then looks at it and looks across all of the sectors, health and safety notices, risks, reports that have been written, and then might say, okay, here's an idea. You've got a specific activity here. There have been incidents in the past related to that, and then it may give you a suggested mitigation that's needed to reduce that risk. So AI in that area is really strong. It's really helping us to deliver our projects even more safely than we have done in the past. What that has shown us is that AI does rely on the data to really be of use, and looking at the areas, I think, because water's quite a specific and niche area in the UK. So how can we bring our data together? How can we bring data from our peers working in water, and how can we bring data from the construction sector as a whole and really use that to support us in deployment of AI tools?
Yeah, that's great to hear. I think that's a critical point, isn't it, of actually how you structure your data and documentation to allow AI to work is critical, isn't it? Because if you don't have that underlying foundation, you're not really going to get very far with any AI tool that's out there.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And the curiosity and the inquisitivity of what it's saying as well, isn't it, Damon? It can only read what it's got there. You still need to apply that knowledge that you have to question it and challenge it and say, yes, is it right, or is what was written before wrong? That's a piece that learning and education of AI is really important for us.
It's certainly interesting times. That's for sure. And you know, Steve, you might have noticed that I smiled when Steve said curiosity. We use that word all the time, and not usually in a complimentary way. We're constantly saying, why aren't more people more curious? But I actually think the advent of AI and an ability to interact in a very natural way is going to actually increase the amount of curiosity that we have across the organization. So in a kind of weird way, we're going to force people to a singular interface, a standardized way of relating to something, accessing, you know, a portal maybe, can then actually drive a much wider, more diverse way and curious way of actually looking at everything that we've got, so that we can actually drive some innovation, make some new connections. We're constantly sort of rebalancing and looking for, I say, I want my cake and eat it. You know, it's kind of like, I want innovation, I want standardization at the same time. You know, it is possible. In fact, it's not just possible, it is necessary to have some of that to get people to start moving. Once people are moving, stopping the chaos is the next challenge. But, you know, let's have a bit more chaos first before we then start slowing things down. I guess at a strategic level as well, Ollie, Intuity is a really good example. We've been working with Intuity for a long time. You know, they were very much a startup when we crossed paths. We've been working with them ever since, and that has worked really well for us. You know, it's a very specific niche little application. We're continuing that kind of strategy with some other startups at the moment. I won't go into the details of them, but certainly in different kinds of areas. So that's working really well. But as Steve mentioned as well, you know, we don't think we can take as much advantage of the AI revolution without actually putting as much effort into the background, the business as usual, the procedures, the security, the sensitivity on all of our documents, all of that really boring stuff that unfortunately I do get excited about. It is necessary so that we can actually then take advantage in the proper way of all of this excitement around AI. So we've got a very balanced approach, and hopefully that's coming across in the conversation that you know, we do want our cake and eat it. We want absolute chaos and we want absolute order at the same time, or at least in the right place. That's good to hear. And I think it makes me think about there's so much you can do from an innovation and AI and digital perspective, but how much from your point of view are you needing to sort of show the commercial benefits, whether that's through financial savings, cost gain, you know, gains, time saved? How much do you have to sort of prove the business case of like, innovate, we're going to do this piece of innovation, therefore we think it's going to do this, and the outcome has actually been that? Is there always I guess there always is a commercial necessity, but how do you actually manage that?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, and it's a very tough question to answer. So when we look at our projects and the digital tools, yes, you want to show benefit that they're going to bring, but actually when you look at construction as a whole, a significant number of projects run over budget, a significant number of projects run late. So actually the biggest benefit that we've seen from the deployment of our digital tools is by bringing certainty. So we actually deliver more projects on time, and we deliver more projects to benefit to budget. Now, how you actually cost that out, how you show that benefit is a real challenge, because you're just doing what you said you were going to do. So it is a difficult piece for us to look at that. As we've started to get that certainty around delivery, though, you can start to see what the new baselines are for performance, what you should be doing from, and then how you can drive benefit. I think one of the areas that Damon and I have been looking at and talking about internally is introducing what we're calling a technology acceptance panel, where we both sit, the head director of engineering will sit, representative from delivery and Czech will sit, and we'll look at tools that are being proposed by our teams and consider them in the round for the overall business benefit, and how does that really support us overall, because often you can have some technologies that drive great benefit in one area, but actually challenge or create difficulties in another area. If you start to create silos of systems of tools that's not interoperable with other of our systems, we've suddenly got those Excels starting to spawn back into life again, when we thought we'd nailed them in the coffin and they're never coming back out. So it's really important around those areas to think about that in the round at a business level now.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking outside MWH Treatment to an extent, to the water companies that you work with, like, does the innovation work that you do sort of flow into or impact the water companies that you work with very closely in the UK?
Yes, it does. We're driven by our clients. We're driven by the information that they require us to hand over at the end. There is a definite shift occurring. That we have to not only hand over a physical asset, but we also have to hand over a digital asset. That requires us to think very differently in the way that we maybe complete our projects, because it's easy to go out to site, isn't it? And you look at the asset there and you see the unclean water coming in, the clean water going out, you measure that against its standards. Okay, that's achieved what it should have achieved. But digitally handing that asset over is a challenge. I think the area to really focus on is how we work with our clients to hand over digital assets that help them operate their networks more efficiently, but will also help us when we go back to that project in 5 or 10 years to deliver a further enhancement, because there's more people living in the UK that needs to be expanded, or environmental standards have improved, new contaminants are coming in, creating legislation to remove more pollutants that we hadn't necessarily removed in the past. So how can we close that loop from what we do in construction into operations and then feeding back into the beginning? And that's, I think, going to be a real area of discovery over the next 5 years. We're starting to see the handover of that digital information, but how it's used and how it informs us at the start of the next project is really going to come to the fore, I think, between now and 2030.
Right, thanks. And you mentioned the next 5 years. You've achieved a lot that you sort of outlined already in the call so far, in the last 5 years in particular. Looking forward up to 2030, what are your vision for what the next 5 years could look like for MWH Treatment from an innovation perspective?
I mentioned earlier on, the big push for me and my little team is about bringing all of that data together, or at least being able to surface that data through a singular, easy to deal with interface for our humans. This is not a big push to get rid of humans. We're not going to decimate the civil service like the US seems to be doing at the moment. No matter what you think about Elon Musk and his abilities or his machine's abilities. But no, I mean, genuinely, this is about being able to empower our humans to do things that they've not been able to do before, whether that's as simple as asking a question of some data and getting certainty out of it, rather than having to just almost sometimes blindly trust the whole chain of humans that have come up with that answer so far. It is about being able to trust our data so that we can make better decisions. It's about actually adding that asset data to it, though. I keep talking about these simple questions that we're going to be able to answer. How much did it cost us to build the inlet works for a whole framework across 5 years? That's a really difficult question for us to answer right now. Because we have lots of silos, and sometimes they're very well organized, and we have asset codes, but sometimes we don't. All of our clients have slightly different asset codings and asset hierarchies. So trying to bring all of that together has been the focus of probably about the last 12 months. We've been going through an ERP update for the last 12 months, quite significant one. So a lot of the thought that's gone into that has been about, well, how do we make it easier to connect from a data perspective? I think we're going to see a lot more automation. I think we're going to see a lot more AI. I don't profess to know exactly where AI is going to go. I don't think it's going to get rid of engineers within a few years, like some people think.
No.
I think there will certainly be an effect, but I think we'll learn how to deal with a new set of tools that will make us more productive and more innovative as we go along. Certainly MWH, I'm very positive about. We've successfully won 50% more work than we've done in previous frameworks, the regulatory cycles that we're working with the water industry. You mentioned the wider industry. Ofwat have an innovation fund that's going from strength to strength. And again, that's not just about awarding money to individual companies, that's awarding money to people that want to come together and share new ways of doing things that will bring our whole industry further forward. And the water companies are very much part of that whole ecosystem around that. So yeah, it's a really positive place for us to be.
Great, brilliant. Thanks, Damon. Last question for both of you. What are you most proud of in terms of your digital transformation work that you carried out at MWH Treatment so far?
For me, there's two elements. I think recognition through winning awards. It shows that what we are doing is right at the cutting edge, not only in the water sector, but also across the construction sector, helping move the UK forward. So the awards are sort of recognition of what we do. I think the main area that I'm most proud of is seeing diversity and inclusion grow as a result of using digital tools. It's not something I think you really see, but I think that people side is really quite an eye-opener for me. We've brought a lot of new skills into the organization, not traditional engineers. We've got visualizers, we've got data scientists, we've got data analysts. They're all contributing a different level of thought to the business, asking questions of Damon and I that we don't necessarily know the answer to. So that's a great thing. The visualization side has really brought that collaborative innovation to our projects. It's really engaged people who can't potentially read a 2D drawing, who feel that they can't contribute in a meeting because they're not sure of whether their point is valid or not. When you've got a visualization of a 3D model that's there presented in a way that's clear and easy, the ideas that come forward from people is brilliant. So that diversity inclusion is a real piece for me around what we've achieved with digital transformation today. Yeah,
great. And creating that culture that enables that diversity is critical, isn't it? So that's great. It's great to hear. And Damon, what about from your perspective?
I'm going to go the exact opposite end of the spectrum and say it sounds like such a small thing, but this last 12 months in my current role, my new role, I keep calling it a new role. It's not new anymore, but it's still new for a lot of people. 12 months ago, we were sat in business meetings, project meetings. Virtually no one mentioned data.
Wow.
No, because we data flows and you do stuff and you get your job done and you don't have to think about it too much. Virtually every conversation we have now at all levels of the organization, we're talking about, so where's the data? What can I automate? Can we make that slicker? Where's it coming from? Asking all of those really useful, curious questions. That I get more warm feeling out of that walking into meetings, knowing that I've contributed to pushing this data thing along, because I genuinely think that really small little thing that we call data is going to absolutely change what we do in the future, and for the better. And again, just to pick up on Steve, I think the other thing in terms of the technology that we've been using, that visualization technology, whether it's as simple as a 3D model that you can turn upside down, you can have a look what's underground and all of that kind of stuff, that at the simplest end, all the way through to building immersive gaming engine type rehearsals that we've done over many years has completely changed how we engage some of our clients, and some of those clients are really, really important people. So getting those guys on board really early on our projects has been a massive step forward. I'm hoping we can start doing that with the data side of things as well.
Yeah, brilliant. It was a nice sort of combination of the people side of it in terms of allowing people to bring their skills and expertise to bear, and then there's technology and the data side of it, you mentioned, Damon, to actually structure things in the right way so that people can do their best work, and I guess with AI supporting it as well in the future. But brilliant. Well, that was really enjoyable chat, and thanks a lot for giving me your insights into the innovation work that you guys have been running at MWH Treatment in recent years, and I'm sure more to come in the future. Thanks very much for your time, and we'll leave it there for today. Thanks a lot.